The thunderous crack of a Winchester rifle shatters the pre-dawn silence across the desolate Texas plains. William Harrington stands motionless on a rocky outcrop, his expensive Chicago-tailored coat billowing in the harsh desert wind, watching smoke rise from a distant homestead he just ordered burned. The year is 1887, and progress waits for no man. "That's the last of the Henderson property," Mr. Harrington calls out his foreman, a weathered man named Jake Morrison, as he approaches on horseback. Behind him, 3 ranch hands sit mounted, their faces grim beneath their wide-brimmed hats. The acrid smell of burning wood and dreams fills the morning air. Bill Harrington turns slowly, his steel-gray eyes reflecting the orange flames in the distance. At 42, he carries himself with the authority of a man who has never heard the word no and lived to remember it. His mustache is perfectly waxed, his boots polished to a mirror shine despite the dust and grit of the frontier. "Good," he says, his voice carrying the cold efficiency that built his railroad empire. The surveyor's report shows the tracks will run straight through that valley. No obstacles now. He mounts his black stallion with practiced ease. "What about the Rodriguez place?" Jake shifts uncomfortably in his saddle. That's different, sir. The Santa Elena Ranch has been in their family for 3 generations. Old Miguel Rodriguez says his grandfather fought alongside Sam Houston himself. They're not selling. Bill's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. In the distance, a coyote howls, its lonely cry echoing across the endless expanse of scrub brush and mesquite. "Every man has his price, Jake. We simply haven't found theirs yet." The small convoy rides hard across the rugged terrain, their horses' hooves kicking up clouds of dust that settle on everything like a fine coating of defeat. As they crest a hill, the Santa Elena Ranch spreads before them like a mirage. Adobe buildings with red tile roofs, weathered wooden corrals, and a windmill turning lazily in the constant breeze. It's bigger than Bill expected, easily 2,000 acres of prime real estate that stands directly in the path of his transcontinental railroad. They approach the main house just as the sun climbs higher, casting harsh shadows across the courtyard. Miguel Rodriguez emerges from the barn, a man in his 60s with silver hair and hands that tell the story of decades working this unforgiving land. His wife, Maria, appears in the doorway, wiping flour from her hands on her apron, her dark eyes immediately suspicious of these well-dressed strangers. "Señor Rodriguez," Bill says, dismounting and removing his hat in a gesture of manufactured respect. "I'm William Harrington of the Chicago and Southern Pacific Railroad Company. I believe my representatives have spoken with you about a business proposition." Miguel's weathered face hardens. "If you've come to talk about selling me rancho, you've wasted your time and mine, senor. This land is not for sale." Bill reaches into his coat and withdraws a leather portfolio. "I understand your attachment to this place, truly I do. But times are changing, Mr. Rodriguez. The railroad brings prosperity, jobs, opportunity. This offer," he extends an envelope containing more money than most men see in a lifetime. "This would set your family up for generations." Maria Rodriguez steps forward, her voice sharp with emotion. "This rancho is our life, senor. Our children were born here. Our parents are buried here. You cannot put a price on such things." "Ma'am, with respect, everything has a price." Bill's tone remains courteous, but his eyes reveal the predator beneath the civilized exterior. "The railroad will come through this valley whether you sell or not. Eminent domain is a powerful tool, and frankly, you'd prefer to work with me rather than against me." A tense silence settles over the courtyard, broken only by the creaking of the windmill and the distant lowing of cattle. Miguel Rodriguez stares at the envelope in Bill's outstretched hand, his internal struggle visible on his face. Behind him, a young girl peers around the corner of the house. Elena, his 12-year-old granddaughter, her large brown eyes filled with fear and confusion. "How long?" Miguel asks quietly. "How long for what? How long do we have to leave?" Bill checks his gold pocket watch. "The construction crews arrive in 1 week. I'll need the property cleared and ready for demolition by then." "Demolition?" Maria's voice cracks. "You're going to tear down our home?" "Ma'am, I'm going to burn it down. It's faster, more efficient. The whole place needs to be cleared anyway." Bill's matter-of-fact tone sends a chill through everyone present. "Clean slate for the railroad bed." Elena Rodriguez gasps audibly from her hiding place. The sound draws Bill's attention, and for a moment, his eyes meet those of the frightened child. Something flickers across his face, a shadow of recognition, perhaps a memory of his own childhood before business hardened his heart to stone. Miguel Rodriguez takes the envelope with shaking hands. Inside, the bank draft represents more money than the ranch could earn in 5 years of good seasons, but it also represents the end of everything his family has ever known. We will need 3 days to gather our things. You have 2, Bill says, already remounting his horse. I'm a busy man, Mr. Rodriguez. The railroad waits for no one. As the small convoy rides away, Elena Rodriguez runs to her grandfather, tears streaming down her young face. Abuelo, where will we go? What about Mama's garden? What about Papa's grave? Miguel Rodriguez holds his granddaughter close, his own eyes wet with unshed tears. Sometimes, Mija, the world changes whether we want it to or not. We must be strong, como tu abuela taught us. 2 days later, Bill Harrington returns alone to the Santa Elena Ranch. The Rodriguez family has vanished like morning mist, taking only what they could carry in their wagon. The corrals stand empty, the windmill turns without purpose, and the house sits silent and abandoned under the merciless Texas sun. Bill walks through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing hollow in the suddenly cavernous space. In what was clearly Elena's room, children's drawings still decorate the walls. Pictures of horses and wildflowers, of family gatherings and happier times. On the small wooden dresser sits a forgotten doll, its painted face smiling serenely at nothing. He finds himself strangely moved by these remnants of interrupted lives, but quickly pushes such sentiments aside. Business is business, and sentiment is the enemy of progress. Tomorrow, he will torch this place and clear the land for his railroad. Tonight, he will camp here and begin his preparations. As darkness falls across the ranch, Bill builds a fire in the main room's large stone fireplace. The flames cast dancing shadows on the adobe walls, creating an almost hypnotic atmosphere. He sits in a wooden chair that clearly belonged to Miguel Rodriguez, sipping whiskey from a silver flask and reviewing his construction schedules by lamplight. The house settles around him with the natural sounds of old wood and adobe cooling in the desert night. Wind whistles through gaps in the windows, and somewhere a loose shutter bangs rhythmically against the wall. These are normal sounds, the kind any experienced frontiersman would expect in an abandoned building. But then he hears something else. At first, it's so faint he thinks it might be the wind playing tricks with the old floorboards. A soft sound, almost like crying, coming from somewhere below his feet. Bill looks down at the wooden planks beneath his chair, frowning. He's seen the entire house. There's no basement or cellar that he noticed. The sound comes again, clearer this time. Definitely human, definitely young, and definitely distressed. Bill rises from his chair, the leather of his boots creaking as he steps carefully across the floor, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. In the far corner of the main room, partially hidden behind an old wooden chest, he discovers a trapdoor he hadn't noticed before. The iron ring that serves as its handle is worn smooth by countless hands over the years. As he approaches, the crying becomes more distinct, the unmistakable sound of a child in despair. Bill hesitates. Every rational bone in his body tells him this is impossible. The Rodriguez family left 2 days ago. He watched their wagon disappear over the horizon himself. Yet the sound is undeniable, heart-wrenching in its raw emotion. He grasps the iron ring and lifts the heavy wooden door. A rush of cool, musty air flows up from the darkness below, carrying with it the scent of earth and old wood and something else. The lingering trace of human habitation. Stone steps lead down into blackness, carved directly from the bedrock beneath the house. Hello. Bill calls down into the darkness, his voice echoing strangely in the confined space. Is someone down there? The crying stops abruptly, replaced by a silence so complete it seems to press against his eardrums. Bill retrieves his lantern from the table and carefully descends the narrow stone steps, each footfall echoing with hollow finality in the subterranean space. The cellar is larger than he expected, clearly hand-carved from the living rock by someone with considerable skill and determination. The walls are smooth and dry, and the air, while musty, is breathable. But what captures his attention are the clear signs of recent habitation: blankets neatly folded in one corner, the remnants of food stored in clay pots, and most shocking of all, fresh drawings on the walls done in charcoal and chalk. "My God," he whispers, holding his lantern higher to illuminate more of the space. "Please don't burn our house, Senor." The voice comes from the deepest corner of the cellar, where the lantern light barely reaches. Bill's hand instinctively moves toward the Colt revolver at his hip, but something in the voice stops him. Its youth, its desperate vulnerability, its complete lack of threat. "Who's there?" he demands, trying to keep his voice steady. "Show yourself." A small figure emerges from the shadows like a ghost materializing from the darkness. Elena Rodriguez steps into the circle of lamplight, her young face streaked with tears and dirt, her simple dress wrinkled and torn. She looks exactly as she did 2 days ago, yet somehow different. Older, more determined, as if the past 48 hours have transformed her from child to fierce guardian of something precious. "You," Bill breathes, his mind racing to understand what he's seeing. "But you left. I saw your family's wagon. I saw you leave." Elena shakes her head, fresh tears leaving tracks through the grime on her cheeks. "I hid in the old oak tree by the creek until they were gone. Then I came back here, to mi casa, to wait." "Wait for what, child?" "For you to change your mind about burning it." Her voice carries a dignity far beyond her years. "This place is too important to burn, Senor. Too many people depend on it, even if you cannot see them." Bill stares at the girl, his businessman's mind struggling to process what he's encountering. This child has been living alone in this cellar for 2 days, surviving on whatever food she could scavenge, clinging to some impossible hope that she could single-handedly prevent the destruction of her family's legacy. "Elena, that is your name, isn't it?" When she nods, he continues, "Elena, you can't stay here. This place is going to be destroyed tomorrow morning. It's already decided, already planned. Nothing can change that now. Everything can change if you want it to," she says with the absolute conviction that only a child can possess. "My abuelo told me stories about this place, about the people who found safety here when there was nowhere else to go. If you burn it, all those stories die too." Something in her words strikes Bill with unexpected force. He looks around the cellar again, this time noticing details he missed before. The walls bear not just Elena's recent drawings, but older markings, names carved in Spanish and English, dates going back decades, even what appear to be Native American symbols etched deep into the stone. "What is this place?" he asks, more to himself than to the girl. Elena moves to the nearest wall, her small hand tracing one of the older carvings. "Abuelo said his father built this when the Comanche raids were bad. Families would come here to hide, sometimes for days. Later, when there was trouble between the Mexicans and the Anglos, people still came here. Anyone who needed safety, anyone who had nowhere else to go." She turns to face him, her young eyes holding depths of knowledge and pain that seem impossible for someone so young. "Even now, Senor, people still come here sometimes. The old vaquero Tomas, when his back hurts too much to work. Senora Martinez when her husband drinks too much tequila and gets angry. The Jimenez children when their mother is too sick to care for them." Bill feels something shifting inside him, a sensation he hasn't experienced in years, the uncomfortable stirring of conscience. "That's all very touching, Elena, but it doesn't change the facts. The railroad must go through this valley. Progress waits for no one." "Does progress have to destroy everything beautiful?" she asks, her voice small but unwavering. "Can it build around some things, protect some things that matter?" For a long moment, the only sound in the cellar is the soft hiss of the lantern flame and the distant moan of wind through the house above. Bill finds himself studying this remarkable child who has risked everything to make one last desperate stand for her family's heritage. "Why didn't you go with your family?" he asks finally. Elena's lower lip trembles, but her voice remains steady. "Because someone had to stay and tell the stories. If everyone who loves this place leaves, then it really does die, even before you burn it." Bill Harrington has built his fortune by making hard decisions quickly and never looking back. He has evicted widows, foreclosed on family farms, and ordered the destruction of anything that stood in the path of his railroad empire. But as he stands in this underground sanctuary, looking into the tear-filled eyes of a 12-year-old girl who chose courage over comfort, He feels something crack inside the ice-cold fortress of his heart. Above them, the wind picks up, howling around the abandoned house with renewed fury. In the distance, thunder rumbles across the Texas plains, promising one of the violent storms that periodically lash this harsh landscape. But here in the safety of the stone cellar, two unlikely companions face each other across a gulf of age, culture, and purpose, each holding fast to their own version of what tomorrow should bring. The lantern flame flickers, casting wild shadows on the carved walls where generations of desperate souls have left their mark. And in that dancing light, Bill Harrington begins to suspect that this strange encounter may change far more than just the fate of one doomed ranch house. The storm is coming, in more ways than one, and morning will bring decisions that will echo through both their lives like voices calling from the depths of the earth itself. The first drops of rain strike the house above like bullets, quickly becoming a thunderous deluge as the Texas storm unleashes its full fury. Lightning illuminates the cellar through the open trapdoor in brilliant flashes, followed by thunderclaps that shake the stone foundations. Bill instinctively moves toward the steps, but Elena's small hand touches his arm. "The storm will pass, senor. But if you go up there now, you'll be soaked until dawn." He looks down at her dirt-streaked face, illuminated by the warm lantern glow. "How long do these storms usually last?" "Sometimes all night," she says, settling against the carved stone wall. "My abuelo used to say that when the sky weeps this hard, it's because the earth has stories it needs to wash clean." "Tell me about these stories," Bill says, surprising himself with the words. Elena's eyes brighten as she moves to a wall covered in older carvings, her fingers tracing weathered symbols. "This horse was carved by a Comanche boy named Running Wolf in 1863. His mother brought him here to hide when he was hurt by cavalry soldiers." Bill steps closer, his skepticism warring with growing fascination. "How could your grandfather possibly know that?" "Because Running Wolf came back as a grown man 20 years later and told him. He carved his adult name right here, next to his childhood drawing." Elena points to sophisticated symbols etched deeper into the stone. "He said this place saved his life." The lantern flame flickers as wind howls through the house above. In the dancing light, the carved symbols seem to move and shift. Bill finds himself drawn deeper into the cellar, examining other markings. "And this one?" he asks, pointing to Spanish script. "Maria Guadalupe Sanchez, 1871. She hid here for 3 days with her newborn baby when Texas Rangers came looking for her innocent husband. The baby got sick, and she was terrified he would die. What happened to them? The baby lived. He grew up to be Padre Miguel, who built the church in Laredo. He used to return here every year to say Mass in this cellar and thank God for their salvation." Bill stares at the Spanish words carved into stone, feeling a strange chill. "These are just stories, Elena. Legends, are they?" Elena moves to another section bearing fresh carvings. "Then how do you explain these?" The recent markings are clearly fresh, sharp-edged, and bright. "Sarah Mitchell, 1884, Elena reads. Running from a husband who beat her. Tomas Guerrero, 1885, accused of stealing cattle he didn't steal. The sheriff was going to hang him without trial." Bill's throat tightens. "How do you know all this?" "Because they told me abuelo their stories when they came back to thank him. Because this place doesn't just protect people's bodies, senor, it protects their stories, their truth, their hope." Lightning flashes again, illuminating Elena's face with stark clarity. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because you need to understand what you're destroying." Elena sits on the smooth stone floor. "My abuelo said some men burn things because they're evil, but more men burn things because they've forgotten how to see what's beautiful." The words hit Bill like a physical blow. He turns away from her penetrating gaze. "I'm not evil. I'm a businessman. I build railroads, prosperity for entire regions. The greater good demands sacrifice." "Whose greater good?" "The railroad will make you richer, but what does it give to the people whose homes you burn?" Bill whirls to face her, frustration finding release. "Jobs, opportunity, connection to the wider world. The railroad brings civilization, progress. Progress." Elena repeats the word as if tasting something bitter. "My abuelo called it olvido, forgetting. When people rush toward tomorrow, they forget the value of what they're leaving behind today." The storm reaches peak intensity, the air growing thick and oppressive. Bill feels the walls closing in emotionally, spiritually, in ways he can't control. You don't know anything about me, he says, voice lacking conviction. You don't know what I've sacrificed, what I've lost. Elena looks at him with eyes too old for her young face. Tell me. The two words hang like a challenge. Bill stares at this remarkable child who has stripped away all his defenses with nothing more than stories and unshakable faith in truth. I had a family once, he begins slowly, painfully. A wife, a daughter. They lived in Illinois, in a house not so different from this one. Elena says nothing, her silence more encouraging than words. I was building my first railroad, going to make my fortune, give my daughter everything I never had. I was away so much, always solving problems. Bill's hands clench as memories surface. There was a fire. Faulty wiring in the house I'd bought for them, the finest house in Cedar Falls. How old was your daughter? Elena asks gently. Bill's breath catches. 12. Her name was Catherine. She had dark hair like yours, and eyes that could see right through to a person's soul. She used to draw pictures, cover every wall with horses and flowers. The silence stretches, heavy with shared understanding. Elena simply holds space for his pain. I threw myself into work after that. Built bigger railroads, made more money, acquired more power. I told myself it was what Catherine would have wanted. But it wasn't enough, Elena states. Nothing was enough. No amount of success could fill the hole they left. So I kept building, kept pushing forward because stopping meant facing the emptiness. Somewhere along the way, I forgot how to see anything except obstacles to be removed. Elena walks to an elaborate carving depicting a tree with deep roots and spreading branches. Tiny figures shelter beneath its canopy. My bisabuelo carved this tree of memory when he built the cellar. He said as long as people remembered the stories, the tree would keep growing, keep sheltering anyone who needed protection. Bill stares at the intricate design, thinking not about efficiency, but about the love that drove a man to create something beautiful simply because beauty had value. The fire that killed your family wasn't your fault, Elena says suddenly. I wasn't there. I was fighting with a contractor while they burned. If you had been there, you would have died too. Then there would be 3 graves instead of 2, and no one left to remember their stories. Her simple logic cuts through decades of self-recrimination. Bill feels a massive weight lifting from his shoulders. Children don't want their parents to stop living because they died, Elena continues. They want them to live better, love more, remember what matters most. The storm weakens, thunder growing distant, rain softening. Something has shifted between the grieving man and courageous child. Elena, if I were to spare this ranch, what would happen to my railroad? I have investors, contracts, schedules. There are many paths through a valley. Some go around the most precious places, not through them. It would cost more, significantly more. Add 3 miles to the total distance. How much is a story worth, senor? How much is your daughter's memory worth? Bill walks slowly around the cellar, seeing it truly for the first time, not as an obstacle, but as a testament to human courage and hope. If I change the route, I'll have to renegotiate every contract, add 6 months to construction. It will cost me a fortune. Elena smiles, transforming her entire face. But you'll still build your railroad. And this place will still be here for the next person who needs somewhere safe. Bill finds himself smiling in return. You're quite the negotiator for 12 years old. Above them, the storm passes, leaving clean, rain-soaked air and distant thunder. The silence is peaceful now, the quiet of resolution and lifted burdens. Bill climbs the steps and opens the trapdoor. Stars appear in the clearing sky, reflecting in courtyard puddles. Elena, come up here. Together they walk into the courtyard. The air smells of sage and wet earth and possibility. I want you to write down every story your grandfather told you about this place, Bill says, withdrawing a notebook. I'm having a bronze marker made that will tell people what this ranch really is. When my railroad donates this land for a historical preserve, everyone will know these stories. Elena's eyes widen. You're not going to burn the ranch. No, little one. I'm going to save it. Forever protected, so your great-great-grandchildren can tell these stories to their children. Elena throws her arms around his waist with fierce joy. Bill stiffens momentarily. Physical affection has been foreign so long. But then something melts inside him, and he returns the embrace, tears rolling down his weathered cheeks. There's one more story for that collection, he says quietly. About a little girl brave enough to fight for what she loved, who reminded a broken man that some things are more valuable than money. As dawn paints the eastern sky gold and pink, they stand together in the courtyard, no longer adversaries but allies in preserving something precious. In the distance, Miguel Rodriguez approaches at full gallop with his sons, returning to search for his granddaughter. Elena waves excitedly, calling out in Spanish. Bill's attention catches movement in an upper window, the silhouette of a young girl with dark hair, watching with approval. The figure raises one small hand in blessing, then fades as morning light grows stronger. The sense of peace settling over Bill feels like nothing so much as a daughter's forgiveness, finally received after 15 years of wandering. The railroad will still be built, but now it will curve around the Santa Elena Ranch like a river flowing around a sacred grove. And in the basement of an old adobe house, the carved walls will continue collecting new stories, new testimonials to hope and courage. Some echoes are meant to be heard forever,